Mobedyar Khushroo Mirza. I don't know how many people know him. He was very active in Montreal as a Mobedyar. He's very active in Toronto. He's one of the person I know who reads a lot of books and has a lot of knowledge about everything what you can talk about, especially Zoroastrianism. He's going to speak to you on a subject, Asha Vahishta, a true guide to a good living. And Zoroastrianism always have subjects which gives you tools to have a good life throughout. Mobedyar Khushroo Mirza, come on up.
Now Tim does put a lot of pressure on me to perform according to what he says, otherwise I have to go home. Thank you very much for being here. And before my love of my life reminds me, she's my coach. I have to wear my glasses. I keep forgetting them. She looks at me and says, glasses. All right. Well, what we're going to do is we are going to take a peek, so to speak, at the path that our journey on this earth is supposed to take during our life here. Now, as with most journeys, a knowledge and a good sense of direction, knowing how to use a compass, can all prove to be very valuable. With that in mind, at least for today, let's try to imitate our wives, who are never shy to ask for directions on the road. The husbands who always claim to know the best shortcuts, we leave them out of this discussion. Now, before all of you start wondering why I'm talking about directions and guides and compasses, let's explore the title for today's talk. I have changed that title a little bit. The title that it is today is Asha Vahishta, our moral compass for good living. I replaced the word tour guide to moral compass. Because a tour guide always says, okay, now we're going to do this, now we're going to do that. And that's not what Asha Vahishta does. Asha Vahishta actually provides you with orientations. It tells you this is the north, this is the south, this is the east, this is the west, just like the compass. It's up to us how we use that compass. So what is Asha Vahishta? In his gathas or divine songs, Asha Zarathustra frequently refers to the 6 spiritual attributes or inherent characteristics of Ahura Mazda. These attributes or qualities pretty much represent the core principles of our Zarathustri way of life. Asha Vahishta is the 2nd attribute, and it's commonly translated as best righteousness. However, Professor Iraj Taraporwala, in his book The Divine Songs of Zarathustra, defines Asha Vahishta as the changeless, eternal law of God. That's a long thing to remember. You see, Ahura Mazda has a vision for the elimination of evil from existence. Therefore, when all of us learn to follow the path of Asha, we help to make the world a better place. In Asha, we discover an orientation, just like with the compass, as I said, which shows us the location of north, south, east, and west. This orientation is helping us to lay the course that leads towards the ultimate destination, which is the elimination of evil from existence. How we use this orientation is entirely up to us. Asha has a way of cutting through a lot of life's complications by pointing to the good habits of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds in our dealings with each other. Asha causes us to ask ourselves whether we are being righteous for the sake of righteousness itself. This is our litmus test. And the answer helps us to make the right choice. You may argue that, hey, I'm only one person. How will whatever I do influence on the masses? But your individual actions or the lack of actions can add up and have a combined positive or negative impact upon the world as a whole. Centuries and centuries after the advent of Asha Zarathustra, the British poet Alfred Lord Tennyson, in his poem In Memoriam, describes this concept of Asha Vahishta so brilliantly when he says, and I quote, "That God which ever lives and loves, one God, one law, one element, and one far-off divine event to which this whole creation moves." Beautiful verse. This verse could easily apply to Ahura Mazda as visualized by Asha Zarathustra, a living, loving God who has created a force that is guiding us, his creation, towards a divine event, namely eternal happiness. Tennyson seems to have hit upon the true significance, the real inner meaning of Asha. Conversely, though, when some of us upset this divine plan by our own selfish actions, evil surges ahead. Some of you may have seen the movie Invention of Lying. This story takes place in an imaginary world where everybody only spoke the truth. They did not even know the concept of lying. The main character in the movie, named Mark Bellison, played by the actor Ricky Gervais, is a very unsuccessful lecture film writer who is assigned to write a film about the 1300s, a very boring era. The next day, poor Mark is fired from his job because of the lack of interest in his film. Nobody wanted to see it. And his landlord threatens to evict him for non-payment of rent. Very depressed, he goes to the bank to close down his account. And the teller informs him the computers are down. So what else is there? Computers are down. But she asks him, "Oh, do you know how much money is there in your account?" Mark was about to tell her the exact amount, the truth. But some kind of a chemical reaction takes place in his brain. He has some sort of what's the word I'm looking for? Anyway, he suddenly remembered that the landlord had said he owed him $800. So he blandly tells the teller, "I have $800 in my account." The computer comes back online. The teller looks at it and says, "It says you have $300 in your account. But since you're telling me you have 800, then the computer must be wrong." Because she couldn't even think of anybody lying, right? So if he says it's 800, got to be 800, and she gives him $800. Now it's a new world. Mark has suddenly realized that he can lie and get gains for himself. See, this changes the balance of everything. Everybody speaks the truth in that world, except this one man. He can say what he likes, and everybody believes him. He's like God for them. And this creates an internal turmoil even for Mark, because he started feeling guilt, he started feeling remorse about his dishonesty, as he began to lie even in his personal relationships. And it seems that lying was getting the better or the upper hand on how he conducted his entire life. So social balance is lost. The happy and honest, simple way of life of the people is upset and disturbed by one person's decision to lie. See how the usher is being disturbed here, totally. In the end, when Mark realizes his folly, and when the lie is discovered, the movie goes and takes another turn, as Hollywood movies are tend to do, and it goes off into a different direction. But this movie demonstrates in a very simplistic manner, mind you, that life is not, in the real world, it's not just lie or not lie. It's more complicated than that. You can't boil everything down to either lying or not lying. If we do not use our good mind or bahumano to weigh each situation, we may end up making the wrong decision, even when we are telling the truth sometimes. This could lead to a complete loss of trust amongst people. And this brings to my mind the children's story of Cry Wolf. As most of you know the story, but for those of you who have not heard of this story, this shepherd boy was tending to his flock every night. Boring job, nothing to do. He decided to gee up things a little bit. So one night he decided to cry out, "Wolf, wolf!" The townspeople came out with sticks and to drive away the wolf, only to be told by this little shepherd boy saying, "Ha ha ha, I was just playing a prank on you." So another few days, he did the same thing. And again, the same thing. And people decided this is too much. We can't trust this guy anymore. So one night when a real wolf came and attacked his flock and he cried wolf, nobody came out. He lost trust among his people and a whole bunch of sheep in the bargain. On a much larger scale, when nations do not trust each other, there is hostility, which often leads to disastrous results, as we can see by the various crises taking place in different parts of the world around us. Now, how many of you believe in the promises made by politicians? Not one hand has gone up. Pretty typical. Here's a story for that. It was election time, so the politician decided to go out to the local reservation to get support from the Native Americans. They were all assembled in the council hall to hear the speech. The politician had worked up to his finale, and the crowd was getting more and more excited. "I promise better education opportunities for Native Americans," said the politician. The crowd went wild, shouting, "Hoya, hoya!" Well, the politician was a bit puzzled with this native word, but he felt kind of encouraged at the enthusiasm shown by the people. "I promise gambling reforms to allow a casino on the reservation." Wow, the crowd reached a frenzied pitch. "Hoya, hoya!" they started shouting, stomping their feet. "I promise more social reforms and job opportunities for Native Americans," said the politician. "Hoya, hoya!" The crowd was absolutely excited by this time. Well, after the speech, the politician was touring the reserve, and he saw a tremendous herd of cattle in the field. Since he had been raised on a farm himself, he knew a little bit about cattle. So he asked the chief if he could go closer to the cattle to take a look at them. "Sure," the chief said, "but be careful not to step in the hoya." Trust is such a valuable commodity. My cousin and her husband run a jewelry shop. It's a repair business in a small town in New York State. They have built up such a good reputation for honesty that it is quite normal and common for their customers when they meet them in the streets to hand over valuable jewelry, sometimes worth over $30,000 a piece, for repairs without asking them for a receipt right there on the street. Even today in modern day Iran, Zartushtis are highly trusted by non-Zartushtis, who prefer to employ Zartushti tradesmen because of their reputation for truthfulness, trustworthiness. In her book, Contemporary Zoroastrians, which was published in 1993, so it's not like 100 years back, Rashna writer describes how Kurdish tribesmen would migrate with their flocks from Hamadan to Tehran. And when they sold their flock, they would give their earnings to a local Zartushti who was highly respected in that area for safekeeping, rather than entrusting it to a bank. The Kurds said that since you are a Zoroastrian, we can trust you with our money. Now, I don't wish to bore you with too many examples, but I do feel that by these examples, we have demonstrated one of the important aspects of Asha, or righteousness, in our daily lives. Going forward, for the sake of simplicity, we shall use the word righteousness instead of Taraporwala's the changeless eternal law of God, because my jaw will break. When speaking about Asha, now let us take a look at the Ashem Vahu prayer. I'll give you a short translation of that. Ashem Vahu, righteousness is good. Vahishtem asti, it is best. Ushta asti, it is happiness. Ushta ahmai, happiness to him. Hyat ashai vahishtai Hashem, who is righteous for the sake of the best righteousness. That's a very powerful, short prayer. So when we recite the Ashem Vahu prayer, we are reminding ourselves to follow the path of Asha, or righteousness, because we actually believe in it, not because mommy and daddy told us to, or not because we are afraid of getting caught. And thereby we help to maintain the divine plan of Ahura Mazda for the universe. We are human, and we have the normal human weaknesses which tend to let negative thoughts enter our minds. So when we pray, especially a short prayer such as Ashem Vahu, we are realigning our minds with positive thoughts, which prevent negative thoughts from taking control of our minds. This creates Vahumano, or good mind, for us. And that itself is a powerful tool to help us in our lives. So this little prayer is a reminder, a tool, and a technique for daily guidance about how to lead our lives on a day-to-day basis. Now, this reminds me of another story, and my boss will say you're telling too many stories about lying. A minister in a church told his congregation, next week, I plan to preach about the sin of lying. And to help you understand my sermon, I want you all to read Mark chapter 17 to be prepared for my sermon. So the following Sunday, as he prepared to deliver his sermon, the minister asked for a show of hands to know how many had actually read Mark chapter 17. Every hand in the hall went up. The minister smiled and he said, Mark has only 16 chapters. I will now proceed with my sermon on the sin of lying. Our religion is proactive in nature. Not only does the act of using our moral compass, Asha, guide us to do the right thing ourselves, but we are also encouraged to help others follow the path of Asha, or righteousness. Asho Zarathustra mentions this in his Gatha Yasna 46 verse 6, which Professor Tarapolwala summarizes in the following manner. He says, the idea here is that if a good man having the power to redeem a wicked person fails to do so, he himself becomes ensnared in a way. He becomes a person who encourages evil and himself gets snared amongst the comrades of untruth. This is pretty clear and specific. If you're not part of the solution, then you're part of the problem. And how very applicable is this philosophy in our present day lives? For example, the world could have done so much more to alleviate the Syrian refugee situation, right from the beginning, but has only now started reacting when the problem has escalated to crisis proportions. Another example is our treatment of the environment. Generations upon generations have created massive pollution. And now we are scrambling to try and rectify the situation. Vada Dastur Manikji Nasarwanji Dhala, in his book The Zoroastrian Theology, says, man may not rest with working for the salvation of his individual soul. He has equally to strive for saving of the collective soul, the soul of all humanity. In his great work, The Gathas of Zarathustra, Professor Stanley Insler states that there exists a partnership between Ahura Mazda and his human creations. This means that just as we humans need Ahura Mazda's help, our help is equally needed by Ahura Mazda to assist him in eradicating evil from existence and to clear the stage for the eventual frashokereti, meaning rehabilitation or making the world wonderful. This then is our journey. And Ahura Mazda has blessed us with his heavenly compass, Asha, to help us to reach the destination. In the series, An Introduction to the Gathas of Zarathustra, which was organized a few years back by Dina McIntyre, one of the contributors wrote an article. The contributor was the ex-assistant vice prime minister under the late Shah of Iran, Dr. Farhan Mer. And he writes about Asha, and he states that Asha organizes the gradual restoration, refreshment, renovation, or frashokereti of the world. He further states that right deeds produce benefits alike for the author of the action and for the whole society. So good deeds have an action and reaction effect in these things. So what does this mean in simple English? During the above journey, if we use our good mind to make good choices, life becomes more orderly and less stressful for all of us. Every day we hear in the news about tragic death and destruction being brought about by callous, unthinking, selfish actions of some individuals. The New York Times recently reported how, when driven by greed, a certain company acquired sole ownership of an AIDS treatment drug. And overnight, they raised the price from $13.50 a pill to $750. This effectively putting the medication beyond reach for several needy patients. Such tragedies can be avoided if those individuals choose to listen to their conscience and make use of the moral compass as provided by Asha. On a more positive note, during the Second World War, a number of heroic people, including some Germans, risked their lives by sheltering Jews and helping them to escape from Nazi atrocities. So humanity is not totally gone down the gutter yet. There's still hope. In order to make a connection between the spiritual attributes of Ahura Mazda and our earthly life, each of the Amesha Spentas have been associated with an earthly element. Asha is in charge of fire. Now, we Zartushtis have often been referred to as fire worshippers. This is a fallacy. Zartushtis do not worship fire. They worship the inner spirit that fire symbolizes. Just as when Christians pray in front of a cross, the cross is a symbol of the supreme sacrifice made by Jesus Christ for humanity. When we offer sandalwood to the fire, this act is meant to remind us of the spiritual virtue of Asha and to keep the holy triad of good thoughts, good words, and good deeds ever present in our minds. In his essay on fire, Lauji Kama, one of the contributors of this series, puts it very poetically when he writes, "Fire illuminates or reveals the path of Asha." When we pray the Kemna Mazda prayer, we affirm that Ahura Mazda's fire of good thoughts, or in Avestan, Atrascha Manangascha, will save us when we are attacked by evil. In the Atashnyaash prayer, as translated by Temura Setna, there is a passage from the Gatha which says, and the passage actually goes on Attoyi Atre Mahura. It's a very familiar passage in the Atashnyaash. And it has been translated as, "We long for Ahura Mazda's fire of thought, mighty through righteousness, bringing clear guidance and joy to the faithful constantly." This was from Yasna 34, verse 4. Asha Vahishta is an Avestan term, which later became Adivest in the Pahlavi language. In the Zartushti calendar, the second month of the year, as well as the third day of every month, are named Adivest. When we are afflicted by any illness, we invoke Asha Vahishta by praying the Adivest Yasht, as this Yasht is well known for its healing power. This makes perfect sense because when we are turning to our compass to help us get back on the beneficial path of good health. As a matter of interest, in Temura Setna's translation of the Adiveshyas, verse 6 states as follows, and I quote, "One cures by purity, one cures by surgery, one cures by medicine from plants, and one cures by matravani," which means holy word. That healer is the best healer who cures by health-giving mantras, holy words. He is the righteous man who heals the soul, and such healer is the best conquering healer. A very powerful passage indeed. A person who has achieved the height of righteousness by following the path of Asha is referred to as Asho. And that is why we refer to our prophet as Asho Zarathustra. Now, we mere mortals may not be able to achieve such a high degree of righteousness as to earn the title of Asho. But it is incumbent upon all of us to try our best by frequently referring to our moral compass, Asha Vahishta, to ensure we do not stray off the track. In summing up, the main function of a compass is to provide us with the orientation necessary to help us choose the right course for the voyage. This is what is achieved by our moral compass when we choose to heed our inner voice and follow the path of Asha, leading us to Ahura Mazda's vision of Prashokeriti, or the universal and personal goal of bringing about the triumph of good over evil in this world. As we pray in the Atashnyaash, Dastuji Dhala's translation, Manano avayachudan, manano avayachudan, manano avayachudan. Meaning, I must go there. I must go there. I must go there. So where is this nebulous there? What tells us during our life here on earth where the destination is? How do we know we're traveling in the right direction? Well, my personal belief is that we maintain a mental checklist. We ask ourselves, are we honest in our dealing with each other? Have we built up a reputation for being trustworthy? Are we setting a good example for our children? Are we doing our best to help others less fortunate than ourselves? Have we taught others the right way to use their moral compass? If the answer to all these questions is yes, then we are on the right track. Thank you.